How many of us have been on a motorcycle taxi? Really convenient, right? Now, imagine this. It's been a well spent day in town with your friends. It is well past 6 o'clock, and your curfew, for those of us that have a curfew, is fast approaching. Coincidentally or not so coincidentally, the traffic on the highway is bumper to bumper. A taxi would take too long to arrive, and you'd probably just end up sitting there and paying more. You then decide that an easy fix would be a motorcycle. You remember you said you'd never get on one again because you know how dangerous it is, but you decide to anyway. You signal for the rider, and off you go. You think he's going too fast, but you don't say anything. As you're approaching the corner, you realize the rider smells faintly of alcohol. Before you get a chance to say something, he takes the corner and you collide with an oncoming vehicle. Everything becomes a blur. Now, as much as it would be a trip, we didn't come here to talk about road safety, so bear with me. Now, imagine this happens to you when you're using your phone. You're scrolling on the internet like everyone seems to be doing these days, and you accidentally tap an unknown link. You don't know how to react to what you see. You are shocked, perhaps mortified, and even slightly intrigued. You say you don't want to see it again, but find yourself coming back. You think you're in control until you're not. Ladies and gentlemen, what I am talking about is pornography. Throughout history, it has been vilified by many and celebrated by some. It is something that has shaped our perceptions, our relationships, and even our understanding of human intimacy as we know it. People may debate on whether the topic is simple or complex, but what is clear is pornography continues to be one of the most relevant and pervasive topics of our time, and therefore, it demands our attention. Did you know that 28,528 users are watching porn every second? 42 billion. 39 billion. You must be asking yourself what these large figures mean. In 2019, the largest pornography platform in the world, I won't mention their name because they don't deserve any more press than they have, boasted that they had 42 billion visits to their site with over 39 billion searches being performed. Last time I checked, we were only around 8.1 billion people on this planet, and only 60% of us have smartphones. So that means you, and you are making multiple visits. 42 billion. Let's break this number down. Let's make it more palatable. 42 billion visits a year would be 115 million a day, almost 5 million an hour, and 80,000 a minute. And that's just on one side. Pornography continues to wreak havoc in our schools, offices, and marriages. I was inspired to give this talk because I observed that a significant part of our population has gotten comfortable with pornography, cozy with the enemy, as some would put it. And I would argue It is a great evil in our society. But what makes it so bad anyway? Well, the neurological consequences of porn are only now being revealed to us by science. However, it is clear that its large audience's mental health and sexual lives are suffering. Porn appears to be hijacking our neurological wiring with disastrous effects ranging from depression to sexual dysfunction. Do you know that feeling you get when you eat your favorite food? Or when you tick off that to-do list, that task or assignment off your to-do list? How about when you're trying bungee jumping or zip lining for the very first time? We all owe this feeling to a neurotransmitter called dopamine. Dopamine is also released when one is engaging in sexual activity. Dopamine is associated with reward anticipation and works to program memories into the brain. This adaptation makes it such that when you're hungry or when you experience sexual urges, the brain knows where to return to get that pleasure. The same way you go back to the fridge or to the pantry when you're hungry is the same way porn users are habituated to returning to their phones or their laptops when desire comes calling. Continuous spikes of this nature desensitize the reward circuitry. If anyone has had experience with alcohol, you know what I mean. In order to get the same kick that I got last month with one beer, I need two now. Changes in dopamine transmission of this nature facilitate anxiety and depression. And this explains why porn users report higher depressive symptoms and lower quality of mental health. Porn is sometimes marketed as adult entertainment. It would make more sense, therefore, that something like this would make you more adult-like, more mature. Ironically, it makes you more juvenile, more childlike. This is because it erodes the prefrontal cortex. For those who may not know, the prefrontal cortex is a region in your brain that is just behind your forehead that is responsible for decision making and controlling behavior. It remains underdeveloped during childhood, and this explains why children often struggle with regulating emotions and impulses. Higher porn use is correlated with less brain activation in this region when presented with conventional types of porn. Users then gravitate to more extreme forms, such as violence and incest, in order to get the same kick. This is especially concerning because as sexual violence is increasing online, sexual violence is also increasing offline. It is with a heavy heart that I say this. Many people believe that the porn industry and human trafficking are entirely unrelated issues, with one being a harmless leisure and the other being an unlawful activity that happens in some distant nations. Definitely not. The porn industry not only preys on children as consumers, but also seeks to sexually exploit them. With just 19% of the world's 24.9 million trafficking victims are enslaved for sex, sexual exploitation accounts for 66% of worldwide trafficking revenues. But what has this got to do with porn? What has any of this got to do with porn? It indicates that sexually exploiting vulnerable people in the porn industry is a sure way to make a lot of money. With the porn industry alone being estimated a worth of $97 billion, It's easy to see why traffickers opt to take advantage of this lucrative opportunity to sell obscene films and photographs to their naive consumers. This is the reality of what the porn industry fuels. Real people being sexually abused and exploited at the hands of family members, traffickers, and pimps. The collective billions of clicks to porn content directly fuels the demand for traffickers to post videos of their sex slaves to porn sites. I know this is scary, but we have to look at evil for what it is and not try to humanize it. Let's rewind all the way back to the motorcycle before you took the corner and you crashed. What would you do now that you know the outcome? Would you just continue sitting there? Whose responsibility is it to tell the rider to stop? You have the evidence, you have the statistics. You need to stop him. You have to stop him. Otherwise, you will crash. Do not agree to remain a statistic. Do not agree to remain one in the 28,000. Become a statistic with a story of deliverance. Whether you use your mind or your willpower or your values or you use your faith like me, please stop the pornography motorcycle. Thank you.